Charles Perrault. Cinderella. Once upon a time, there was a gentleman who married his second wife, who was the most cruel and heartless woman ever known. She had two daughters of her own, who were exactly like her in all things. The gentleman also had a young daughter of rare goodness and sweetness, which she took from her mother, who was the best creature in the world. Her stepmother did not like the young girl at all. She gave her the hardest work in the house. The girl had to wash the dishes and tables, to scrub the floors, and to clean out the bedrooms. The poor girl had to sleep under the roof. When the work was done, she used to sit next to the fire among the cinders and ashes, so her sisters called her Cinderella. However, Cinderella, in spite of her poor dress, was 100 times more beautiful than her sisters, although they were always dressed very richly. It happened that the king's son, a handsome prince, invited the whole kingdom to the ball he gave. Our young ladies were also invited. This made Cinderella's work even harder, for it was she who ironed and cleaned her sisters' dresses.
"Cinderella, would you like to go to the ball?"
her sisters asked. "Young ladies, don't make fun of me. They would never let me in there," Cinderella answered.
"You are right. People would laugh to see a Cinderella at a ball," they said.
Anyone but Cinderella would have made their hair messy, but she was very good and fixed it perfectly well. At last, the happy day came. They went to the ball, and Cinderella followed them with her eyes as long as she could. When she lost sight of them, she started to cry. Suddenly, she heard a voice saying, "You wish you could go to the ball, am I right?" That was her godmother, who was a fairy. "Be a good girl and do what I say. Bring me the biggest pumpkin you could find." Cinderella went at once to gather the best pumpkin she could get, and brought it to her godmother. She couldn't even imagine how this pumpkin would help her go to the ball. The moment the fairy touched it with her magic stick, the pumpkin was turned into a fine golden coach. Then the fairy went to look into the mouse trap, where she found 6 mice, all alive. After a little touch with her stick, each mouse turned into a beautiful white horse. The fairy took a rat and turned it into a fat coachman with the finest moustache ever seen. Then she took 6 lizards and turned them into 6 servants. "Do you like it, my dear?" the fairy asked. "Oh, yes," Cinderella cried. "But must I go there in these old rags?" Her godmother simply touched her with her stick, and at the same moment, her clothes were turned into a beautiful dress of gold and silver. Then she gave Cinderella a pair of the glass slippers, the prettiest in the whole world. Her godmother warned her not to stay past midnight, because if she stayed 1 moment longer, the coach would be a pumpkin again, her horses mice, her coachman a rat, her servants lizards, and her clothes would become just as they were before. The ball was in full swing when the prince and his guests saw a princess whom nobody had known before. There was a great silence. Everyone left off dancing, and the violins stopped to play. Everyone was attracted by the beauty of the unknown girl. Nothing was heard but whispering. "Who is it? How beautiful she is!" The prince invited the princess to dance. The music played again, and nobody could take their eyes off them as they danced. After dancing, the prince was so charmed with the princess that he forgot about the fine meals served. Time went quickly, and Cinderella heard the clock strike 11:45. She at once said goodbye to the company and hurried away as fast as she could. When the sisters came back home, Cinderella asked them about the ball as if she had not been there herself.
There came a princess in the finest dress. She herself was not much to look at, but the prince was charmed. What did he see in her? The sisters said.
The next day, the two sisters went to the ball, and so did Cinderella, but dressed even more beautifully than before with the help of her godmother. Again, she said that the magic would be over at midnight. Cinderella forgot everything when she was with the prince, so she only remembered her godmother's warning when the clock started to strike 12. She ran out of castle without saying goodbye. The prince tried to follow her, but it was too late. When he ran to the stairs, there was no one to be seen. She left behind one of her glass slippers, which the prince took up most carefully. The prince asked the guards if they had seen her, but they answered there was nobody but a poor country girl in a very old dress. Cinderella hurried home. All she had left from the ball was one glass slipper, the prettiest in the world, and wonderful memories of talking with the prince. When the two sisters returned from the ball, they talked about the unknown princess and the sad prince who was looking for her everywhere. The next day, the prince claimed that he would marry the girl whose foot would fit the glass slipper. They began to try it on the princesses, then on the duchesses, and then on all the ladies of the court, but it would fit nobody. It was brought to the two sisters, who tried very hard to put their feet into the slipper, but they couldn't do it. "Let me see if it will not fit me," Cinderella asked quietly. Her sisters began to laugh. The gentleman who was sent to try the slipper looked at Cinderella and said that he had orders to let every lady try it. Putting the slipper to her little foot, he found it went on very easily. The surprise of her two sisters was great, but it was even greater when Cinderella pulled out of her pocket the other slipper and put it on her other foot. Then her godmother came in and touched Cinderella's clothes with her stick, making them more beautiful than any of those she had dressed up before. And now her two sisters threw themselves at her feet to say sorry for all their bad treatment of her. Cinderella took them up and said that she forgave them with all her heart. Then Cinderella was taken to the young prince in his castle. He thought she was more charming than ever, and a few days after, married her. They gave a lovely wedding ball that nobody had ever seen before. The end.